basically, what's going on now, and what was reported last week, is that Blizzard is ceasing support of games in China. This would be Diablo 3, Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, World of Warcraft, and they're going to cease the support not because of issues creatively, but because of licensing issues due to a disagreement with Netease. This agreement ends in January, and after that point, since they can't get something squared away, basically support for those games will end, and they will cease to work in the Chinese region. Zero, what is your thoughts on Blizzard taking away support of their games in China?
It's a bit unfortunate, but for anyone who's not versed in the realm of international politics, this will cause a pretty decent drop in Blizzard's revenue, because I know China has always been one of their big markets, and to lose that market isn't good. And to add additional context to this, for anyone who's not familiar with how mainland China approves video games, you have to run them through a approval council that's run by the Chinese Communist Party. And with that being said, just when you run it through the approval process of the Chinese Communist Party, they'll tell you to remove, censor, or change certain things to basically toe the party line.
Yeah,
So
that's why games like Hearthstone had to change the looks of some of their cards, or why World of Warcraft had to change the clothing on some of the female characters.
yeah, I mean, it goes even farther than that. Like when your character dies in World of Warcraft and you're taken to the graveyard, they couldn't depict dead skeletons in the graveyard, and depicting anything that relates to religion and superstition has to be done completely away with. So there's just a bunch of changes. And why this mention of this Chinese Communist Party council is so important is this council has not approved any new quote imported video games since June 23rd of 2021. So we're nearing around 500-ish days of games that are not being produced by a mainland Chinese studio being approved by this Chinese Communist Party Council. So one of the last few batches of games that were approved was Diablo Immortal. So that one does have its approval for a little bit, but yeah, just after the fallout of this whole Blizzard Netease thing, yeah, that game may vaporize off of the Chinese gaming space as well. And what makes this a little bit more thorny is, let's say, absolute doomsday scenario, just NetEase and Blizzard just cannot reconcile their differences. Just NetEase's demands are seen as unreasonable. NetEase feels that Blizzard's demands are completely out of line. They can't agree. But let's say, I don't know, Tencent swaggers up and says, "Hey, Blizz, yeah, we own one of your competitors, Riot Games, but we can help you with the approval process." Even if a company that has a generally good reputation were to try to step in and broker an agreement with Blizzard, the problem is Blizzard would have to reapply for the certification process all over again. And with how the approval council for the Chinese Communist Party hasn't approved any non-native Chinese games in nearly 500 days, yeah, just even if Tencent were to take over, Blizzard would still be dead in the water, because if the Chinese government isn't approving anything, they can just sit on their ass and go, "Yeah, we're not approving this. This isn't a Chinese-made game, so yeah, you can sit in the ice chamber and just wait until we're ready for you."
Is the reason why the CCP is doing this is because they want to concentrate on helping the businesses in China, or is this part of a morality problem that they have? Why is it that they haven't approved of these games since last year?
Honestly, with some of the stuff that I've observed in the international politics space, I think that the current Chinese Communist Party is still on a moral crackdown. They don't want young people playing video games and wasting their time watching TV shows. They want young people to get married, have children, and basically just breathe and bleed the party line. And uh, they don't want things like foreign media that isn't natively Chinese made, instilling values that are in what they feel are not Chinese characteristics of communism. I think that's why that there haven't been any imported video game approvals for nearly 500 days. Is just the Chinese Communist Party is still on a bit of a moral crackdown, and this moral crackdown has affected Chinese tech companies. So Tencent's been under fire lately for promoting immorality. I think I think Genshin Impact has been a target of it. So MiHoYo, or rather HoYoverse, being their new name, HoYoverse has been targeted by the Chinese Communist Party now for immorality and everything. So I think just right now, it's just not a great environment to just be a Chinese gamer, and this is simply due to the fact that there's just a giant morality crackdown.
Basically, China's on a power kick right now where if it doesn't toe the exact party line, they're not approving of anything that comes out of the West. Is that essentially what's going on?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
basically what's been going on, and because I think Tencent even has a couple of Western studios that they're allied with to do and facilitate publishing for, and some of their game approvals are still stuck in the queue from last year.
Wow. Okay. Here, I guess the only thoughts I have on this is you mentioned that this is gonna hurt their sales projections big time. Right now, Activision Blizzard says that it's not going to affect their sales at all, but I don't see how it won't, to be completely honest with you, because I agree with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think really just they're underselling it to kind of softball the damage, but
Yeah,
over the last decade, just Blizzard has made a huge push into the Chinese market because they were just like, yo, they've got like tons and tons of people there. That's tons and tons of gamers. We got to focus on marketing our games to the Chinese market because we got to get in on all those potential users and everything. So I think they're softballing it right now until the damage actually hits. And NetEase and Blizzard cannot come to an amicable agreement by January 24th. It's going. I imagine the Q1 financial report is gonna look nasty.
here is one of the comments I started seeing a lot on Twitter when this story was mentioned, and the comment essentially is good. I want my games to go back to the way they were. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
And it's a fundamental misunderstanding of things too, because yeah, just does Blizzard do some stuff to cater to the Chinese audience? Yes, but generally, most of those changes do not affect the Western versions of the games. They're generally just changes that appease the Chinese Communist Party. So stuff like Tracer being gay. Oh, she's as straight as a board in China. Just um, no lesbians and gay folks here, guys. So yeah,
Yeah.
just the comment just fundamentally misunderstands just a lot of just how games in China versus the West work. Yeah, is there some Chinese Communist Party chicanery that they want to try to insert into their games and maybe force it to apply to the world in general? Yeah, sure. And the biggest example of that is Guilty Gear Strive, where they in one of these story scenes just they refer to Taiwan as a country, and apparently the Chinese Communist Party was not happy with this and demanded Arc System Works to change it internationally to say, no, Taiwan is a part of China. Get it freaking right. And
Yeah.
of course, just because Arc System Works didn't want to lose the sales in China, they were just like, okay, okay,
Yeah.
we'll change it. So
Again, for those of you who think that this is going to be a good thing, to a certain extent. I don't think the changes are going to be made unless this freeze out happens for, I'd say, 5 years, which I don't think that's. I don't really know the international politics of this, but I don't see them keeping this going for a long extended period of time. Do you think? Do you think this is something that might last a long time?
I think really the absolute doomsday scenario would be just they can't come to an agreement with Netease, and no other no other Chinese gaming company wants to even touch this because they're afraid that if they try to import a Western game and get this Western game into the approval process, that they could essentially put a target on their back with some corrupt Chinese Communist Party official going, "Hey, yo, this studio seems to be really, really, really heavy on just importing Western games. Maybe they've got a hard on for Western values. We should investigate them and maybe see if there's any sort of malfeasance and corruption." So that could happen, and that could send a chilling effect through the Chinese gaming industry that no one may want to touch Blizzard stuff for fear of that, and that's certainly a possibility. And if that happens, just Blizzard will be effectively shut out, and with them over investing a little bit too hard on the Chinese market, if this doomsday situation happens, it's not going to look great. Yeah. It's not going to look great immediately, but I think in the long term, it'll be something like, hey, so we may have bet on the wrong horse, is going to be the sort of messaging we may see.
Is there another market that they can utilize that could soften the blow for losing China? Or is China that big of a market where they ostensibly are going to feel the hurt no matter what they do?
Unfortunately, I don't really think that there's any other sort of geography that is going to be able to leverage the sort of revenue that the Chinese market was generating. So I don't think it's going to suddenly bankrupt Blizzard for anyone who's thinking that, because definitely not going to do that, but it's definitely not going to look good on Blizzard's balance sheet, because I imagine just you're going to have a bunch of stockholders going, "Hey, why are the numbers not getting bigger?" And then just having to fess up and say, so the one partner we worked with in China, we can't come to an agreement with them. We had to turn off the Blizzard game servers, so we're not earning money on microtransactions and all that sweet jazz for the Chinese versions of the game, and just nothing we can do about it. It's going to have some stockholders asking questions and everything, or maybe a potential good is it gets the gaming industry as a whole to question investing in the Chinese market if the Chinese government can suddenly just change the rules and say, "Oh, well, right now we just don't feel like importing games that are not Chinese anymore." That gets some other game companies to wake up and say, if they're gonna suddenly take their ball and leave and keep us hanging on when they may even think about approving our games, maybe we should just pull out of the market and just say, "All right, well, if we can't play fair, then just screw you guys. We'll just go do what we've been doing and just market to other countries who are more than happy to have our games."
Thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.